There are a lot of people who have problem with containing their emotions and explode upon impact, upon triggering by other people. But we don't seem to notice that kind of a behavior in a professional working space. And why shouldn't we practice same kind of a lightness when it comes to our private life? The answer ought to be very simple, because people have much more to lose when it comes to their professional life. You don't want to burn those bridges. You don't want to get a reputation of being very emotional, very reactive. Just imagine the consequences of not being able to tame your temperament. You will be marked for a long time, at least at the current employment. People will be pointing fingers at you, figuratively of course. You will be talked about during lunch breaks. And whenever the possibility for promotion comes up, you won't be the priority on the candidates list. People tend to put more effort in things that are scarce for them, that aren't forgivable. So let's back up a little bit and try to figure out how we can implement the same kind of attitude in our private lives. I've been asked to do a video about emotional reaction versus thoughtful action and elaborate on how to remain centered. When we say centered, we mean emotionally stable. Silence is very powerful, and specifically in this case, silence refers to emotional fortitude. And I actually have a series on that, so you're welcome to check it out. Before proceeding deeper into details, let me give you a simplified definition of what is acting or responding versus reacting. When you're simply reacting, your emotional center is very irritated, and there's no filtering system between your mind and your mouth. Your emotions are overpowering you. Whenever a thought borns in your mind, your brain shoots it out without even selecting which ones to keep and which ones to discard. You spew out everything on your mind without even thinking of consequences of those actions. The biggest difference between responding and reacting is that you are very self-aware during responding process. I say process because it takes a little bit of time to cook up some response and serve it to your audience. So there is an intellectualization process going on in your brain, which means that you receive emotion from your body, you process it, and then you send the proper feedback to your mouth to speak it out. When it comes to responding, it doesn't necessarily mean conveying something verbally. That's why in some examples it's much easier to communicate via text, because you have your time to come up with a proper reply before releasing something out. People who are very reactive tend to be very anxious because they have a lot of things in their mind and they cannot seem to have control over their daily life. Anxiety and stress is something that builds up over time, and if you don't tame it in the right time before it escalates, you will be suffering dire consequences. Emotions are stored in your body. Think of your body like being a container, being a tank, and it has only so much space before it spills out and gets out of control. So what you're essentially doing when you're responding is that you're being self-aware enough to deal with your emotions before that tank fills up. So when you feel that the tank fills up, you take those emotions one by one, deal with them, process them, and let them go. You have to give your attention to each and every emotion before they dissipate. And that's why you can almost tell that a reactive person is very emotional and not in a positive way. When you think of reactive people, think of a child. Children are very honest, they're truthful, and that's a great quality. But when it comes to emotions, their cognitive traits haven't been developed yet. So they can pretty much tell you whatever they have on their mind. You are fat, you have a big nose, you are short. That kind of a behavior is a signal to others that you are not in line with your emotions, and you have a lot of personal baggage that you haven't been dealing with. You have probably heard this, that if a person is angry at someone, it's because they are deep down angry at themselves. And it's the same principle here. You are not angry because someone hurt you or did you wrong. You are angry because your emotions are on the edge and they're dying to be released. Don't get me wrong, emotions aren't bad, just like everything else in life. It's your reaction to those emotions that has to be adjusted. Yet again, if you want to know more about emotional fortitude, there's a playlist for it. Now let's talk about some practical guidelines of how you can tackle your emotions and remain centered. Whenever you interact with someone or something that can be potentially triggering for you, you have to always make yourself to back off a little bit In your mind, of course, and take a second or two to analyze what just happened. You have to identify your reaction, your emotion. Tell yourself what it's about. Did that interaction really offend you? In what way? If you have opportunity to not respond right away, it's even better. Like if you get an appropriate message from your boss who was way out of line, don't respond right away. Let those emotions marinate, sleep on those thoughts, and come back to your reply 24 hours later. If you have time, of course. Whenever the emotional storm has passed, you will be very clear in your mind and you will give much more reasonable response. Whenever these incidents happen, you have to analyze your thoughts, your emotions, and not just right away, even in confinements of your safe space. Analyze, identify, put labels on your emotions, put labels on your thoughts. Was it really that bad, or are you taking yourself too serious? Ask questions. Why did I become triggered? Why was that offensive to me? What is it that I lose if I don't lash out? Always give thought out responses. And those responses will only come to you when you go through different scenarios in your head. Come up with predictions of consequences for those different scenarios. And dependent on your situation, if it's personal, don't lose your integrity. If it's professional, do the same, but be very respectful. The thing is, there's no way to have insurance against these different kind of scenarios where some happening, some incident can trigger you to a point where you will be about to explode emotionally. And most of the time, I don't recommend even responding. Like if someone obviously is trolling you on internet, or if you are passing through a neighborhood and someone from the balcony throws some snide remarks at you, there is no point in engaging those. Always ask yourself, why should I respond to this person? What's in it for me? Will I get some kind of a twisted satisfaction from this, i.e. my ego? Is it really worth it? Now, if it's a personal relationship, then yes, you should confront that person. Or a professional relationship with a colleague whom you are working with every day. So the main point here is to remain centered for your own sake. And as every skill, it takes practice to be better at it. Your ability to stay centered is directly proportional to your ability to deal with your emotions. And for that, you need to cultivate mindful living. And yes, I have a playlist on that subject too. And don't get it twisted, silence is communication as well. He who don't understand your silence will probably not understand your words. Osséin out.